Everything you love was once a project. The apps you tap, the bridges you cross, the shows you stream. None of them happened by accident. Behind every one of them was a dream, a team, and a project manager trying to hold it all together. I'm Rick Morris, and this is AI Driven PM, the show where project managers stop playing games, embrace reality, and use AI to make dreams come true without burning out their people. Each week, we'll blend real world project war stories with practical ways to put AI to work. How to plan smarter, negotiate better dates, protect your team, and focus on the work that actually moves the needle. If you ever thought there has to be a better way to do this, then you're in the right place. Let's get to work. This is AI Driven PM. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the fourth episode of AI Driven PM Season 2. Very excited to have you along with me again here today. And today we're going to talk about a great topic. It's going to be people versus domain expertise. It's one of these questions I hear all of the time. It says, when I'm working with a new client or interviewing for a role, I love the question is like, well, are you an expert in the insurance industry? And I'm like, no. And they're like, well, shouldn't you be an expert in this industry in order to be a PM? And I'm like, not really. And they're like, why? And I was like, well, how many people do you have working here? They're like, well, we've got 5,000 people. I was like, great. You got 5,000 experts in insurance, but you need somebody like me who can get the best out of those people. So I will have domain expertise by the time I leave, but I don't necessarily need it to be able to do a great job. And I'll talk about some more of that theory as we get into it, but that's what we're going to be discussing today. And then how we can use AI as a thinking partner to help us in this very same space. So should a PM know the domain deeply or just know how to work with people that do? That's the question. I think it should, again, domain expertise can be valuable, but it also can be a hindrance as well. The answer to that question isn't what most organizations think, right? So the conventional wisdom says that you need a PM who understands healthcare or finance or manufacturing, et cetera, and that they have to speak the language of the business, that they have to know it. And there's actually a hiring bias that goes with that domain expertise is actually better than project management expertise. But I think that can backfire on you. And why that can backfire is I think domain expert PMs can often begin to micromanage because they know better, or they challenge what the team has told them because they think they know a better way, or somebody says it takes 10 hours to do that, and it's like, I can do that in 2 hours. So there's some of that stuff that goes on, and a lot of times with very deep domain expertise, they focus on what's being built, not necessarily how the team is building it. And I think that can lead to some mismanagement of the project along the way. Again, with deep domain expertise, you will have, whether you're aware of it or not, a personal bias of how something should be done, the way you did it, the way you've seen it work. How many times have you actually heard that from either people you've worked with or you've said it yourself? It's like, no. I've been there before. I've seen that before, and I know it doesn't work. I don't know if that's the case. It didn't work the time that you tried it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the best way. And really, the team needs to own the solution. And sometimes, quite frankly, they need to benefit from things not working, right? I mean, they've got to be able to try things and figure out that it's not working, and be able to pivot versus just being told what the solution is. And so sometimes I think PMs with deep domain expertise can become bottlenecks for decisions as well, because they feel like they got to be in on the decision. So kind of the truth that I like to run with is a great PM knows how to ask the right questions, not necessarily provide the right answers. Again, there's this fallacy out there that project managers have to go out and make all these decisions, and we don't make decisions on scope or budget or timeline or if something's in or out. We make recommendations. We take a look at how that change is going to impact the plan and go from there. But we're not making those decisions. We're influencing what that decision should be, but we don't make the decision itself. I think great PMs can translate between domains, meaning they're the translator between technology and business and customer, right? They're the ones that basically can take all of the things that are happening and be able to reiterate what, if you've ever heard an engineer explain a problem, it's very technical, very logical. We now have to turn that into a business value issue so that the business knows how to make a decision or understands the urgency of the situation. But even then, I think facilitation plus the desire to have deep learning is greater than deep expertise, because you're unafraid to ask the dumb question or the next question. And a lot of times that dumb question is the breakthrough that people aren't thinking, because they've made assumptions already that's already been dealt with or heard from. So I think that domain agnostic facilitation expert kind of role is really, really beneficial. Now, I'm not saying domain expertise doesn't matter, right? And I'm not saying it's not important. I'm just saying it's not necessarily the factor of hiring somebody. So I think domain expertise matters in like highly regulatory industries like healthcare and finance, where compliance is complex and of the compliance questions to ask. But again, if I don't have that domain expertise, I can just pull in somebody from compliance and say, what are 10 things I need to be concerned about? Like how that even works out. I think deeply technical domains is where translation is critical. So if you're thinking like, if you're building your own AI or ML system, or you have embedded systems, I think it's important to have some technical domain expertise there. But even then, still, I think facilitation and learning is greater than deep expertise sometimes. Somebody coming in fresh to a problem versus somebody who's been there and done that. So today's focus in utilizing AI on AI-driven PM today is I want to use AI to bridge domain knowledge gaps quickly and build stakeholder maps that reveal who has the expertise that we need. So again, looking for that thinking partner, but I want to be able to help bridge or help understand or show you how I like to utilize AI to get me prepared for when I know I'm walking into a specific domain that maybe I'm not worked in before or an expert in. And that's going to be our experiments today and our prompts today. So 1 second here, we're going to go ahead and take a break and listen to our friends from Centric Consulting, and we'll be back with our demonstrations.
In today's economy, leaders are looking for a different kind of consulting partner. A partner that will work with you to understand your culture, technology, and employees. A partner that will develop the solutions you need, not the solutions they know best. For us, it's never been about simply checking a box. Since we were founded in 1999, Centric Consulting has established a reputation for solving its clients' toughest problems by delivering flexible, tailored, cost-efficient solutions, all centered on the right outcomes for each business. It's all part of our mission to deliver an unmatched experience you won't get anywhere else. Centered on what's best for you, Centric is ready to guide you on the journey ahead.
Thank you again to Centric Consulting and everything that they've given to us to allow us to do this series and continue to bring ideas to you on AI-driven PM. So let's get into our prompting. Today, I want to talk about the learning plan here, kind of a domain knowledge accelerator. And so your non-negotiable experiment for this episode is to use AI to get up to speed on an unfamiliar domain fast. Okay, that's going to be your goal. So here's the prompt. It says, you are a strategic learning coach helping a project manager quickly understand a new domain. Then provide a learning plan answering what are the 5 to 7 core concepts or frameworks I must understand in this domain. For each concept, explain it in plain language with an analogy to something more familiar. I'm huge on analogies and mantras. If you did episode 1 where we took the vision and developed a mantra that we could use to share with the team, I'm very, very big on that. So for each concept, explain it in plain language with an analogy to something more familiar. What are the key stakeholder types in this domain, and what does each most care most about? What are 3 to 5 most common pitfalls or mistakes that PMs make when they don't understand this domain? And what questions should I ask domain experts to demonstrate I'm learning and to uncover critical constraints? And then I give it a domain and project context, This will be mine using the social wishing stuff that we're talking about, but this is where you would put in your specific domain and or project context of what you're trying to do. All right, so I'm going to drop those in. We'll put one into each using ChatGPT 5.2, and then I've got Claude Sonnet 4.6. Right out of the gate here, though, before I build your plan, it says, what phase is the social wishing project in right now? Is it discovery, build, stabilization, or scale? Is your biggest risk executive visibility, regulatory exposure, technical failure, or time to market? And then are you expected to challenge technical decisions or primarily coordinate, de-risk, and align stakeholders? So it does ask me some questions there. Once again, if you watch the last episode, Claude, because we've been talking about social wishing so much, assumes it already knows the context and is skipping the Socratic prompting. So if you like that, that's great. If you don't like that, then you've got alternatives as well. This is why I wanted to show kind of the side by side and just slight differences between the models and what they're good at and maybe not so good at. So ChatGPT jumped in right out of the gate here. They both said OAuth and API authorization flows. They talked about graph API rate limits. So they both came through there. Data privacy, classification, retention, algorithm ranking versus simple sorting. So nice. But let's just take one of them. It says viral growth and infrastructure scaling. So plain language, if growth spikes, your system must handle sudden load increases. So analogy, a small coffee shop that suddenly gets national press, if it only has one espresso machine, service is going to collapse. Not bad. What matters to you? But by the way, that right there is a perfect example of what I'm looking for. So let's say, there's a problem you've got to tell the business, and maybe you're talking to sales and marketing. You can work with ChatGPT or Claude or your AI bot and say, hey, help me develop some analogies that's going to clearly describe this problem, right? So when you start talking about spiking and viral growth, people don't understand that. But if you say, hey, listen, I mean, we just went national press and now we've got a line around the block, but we only got one espresso machine. Like that paints a picture, because now you've got to let the whole thing go. You got to clean it, right? How many cups of coffee can you actually make? Love it. Love having those types of analogies. And I think that's why it's so important to do this. So it says, what matters to you? Horizontal scaling strategy, caching strategy, queue systems, and observability and auto scaling triggers. So very, very cool. We're not going to read all of these, but I really want you to be able to get into that portion. One of the other things, I don't know if you picked up on, but anytime I'm using prompts in Chat GPT 5.2 and it starts to number, but it's switching between topics, the numbers kind of mess up. That's something new in 5.2. So if you can see my screen, if you're driving, come check me out on YouTube later. But it gave me like a 1, and then it goes to 2 key stakeholder types and what they care about. And it did that. But then when it went to common pitfalls when PMs lack domain depth, it continued the numbering. It kind of jacked that whole thing up. So I thought that was really interesting, probably something that they'll be working out here. Let's see, Claude, I want to jump over to them. It says, what are the 5 most common PM mistakes that they make in this domain? So treating API permissions as a technical detail, assuming privacy compliance can be added at the end. That's a good one. Underestimating API versioning as ongoing work, letting the sponsor's social vision outrun the platform's reality, and not having an infrastructure conversation before the growth conversation. So really, really like those. It does give you questions to ask your domain experts. And then it gives you a 30-day immersion plan. So really cool. But you can see the point, like you're starting a new client, you're starting a new project, it's slightly outside of your domain. You can tell AI to speak to you very plainly. You can say, speak to me as a high school kid, explain it like I'm in the 5th grade, talk to me like a pirate. It does all that stuff. But that's the point, is like, get it to where it's speaking a language that you really can pick up on. And it becomes a phenomenal thinking partner to help you, move forward in that knowledge gap. Let's do another prompt here. This prompt will say, you are a project stakeholder analyst. Again, ask me 3 to 4 questions about the project, its goals, who's involved and affected, then create a stakeholder expertise map answering who are the 8 to 12 key stakeholders by role, not name, For each stakeholder, what domain expertise or knowledge will they bring to the project? What does each stakeholder care most about? What's their win condition? Which stakeholders should I rely on for domain expertise versus business context versus technical decisions? And what questions should I ask each stakeholder type to tap their expertise effectively? And again, we give it a project context. Let's drop that in and see what they do with this. And for my context, I continue to use the social wishing app, but again, I would hope that you would have yours in here. So it does ask some clarifying questions. It says, is success defined primarily by user growth, engagement depth, monetization potential, or something else? Now, really quickly, because I'm using the same project here, and hopefully you would too. Remember, in both of these platforms, you can create projects where it has access to where you can just say, hey, what's 3 to 4 new questions you haven't asked me before about this project to help me get here? So you don't want to just keep using the same prompt over and over again. I want you to get used to asking it to ask you different questions so that you're thinking through all of your different answers. So key stakeholders, it says executive sponsor, product owner, backend, front end, mobile engineers, UX, UI, QA, marketing. Nice. And it kind of gives us each one. Let's see. Let's get to some of the questions that we should ask. So marketing director says, what does the product need to be true in terms of experience or metrics for you to feel confident running a full launch campaign? It's a great question. QA engineer, if you were going to design the testing strategy for the Facebook API integration from scratch, what would you prioritize? So you see, again, maybe you're going into your first kickoff meeting, or maybe you're doing a one-on-one with a team member or whatever. Utilizing AI to help us think through that and generate great questions to ask is a great way for us to learn and garner domain expertise, but also really start to see who our A players are in the project and see how they respond. We'll do one more prompt here, just in this context. It says, you are a coaching expert and helping PMs lead through facilitation rather than expertise. So ask me 2 to 3 questions about a specific domain decision or technical choice the team is debating. So this is a great one for when you're at a roadblock, or that maybe there's a difference in opinion between marketing and engineering. So you can say, what open-ended questions should I ask to draw out the team's expertise? What framework or structure can I offer to organize the discussion without dictating the answer? How do I acknowledge my knowledge gaps while still leading with authority? What decision-making process should I facilitate? So should this be a consensus-driven one, consultative one, executive call? And how do I summarize and communicate the decision in a way that shows I understand the why, even if I didn't present the what or provide the what? Now, the situation I'm going to use here is that social wishing engineering team is debating architecture. So option A is we could use microservices from day one. They're more complex, but scales better. Or option B, we can do monolith first and then split later, right? So faster to MVP, but potential refactor pain. Now, in my scenario, I'm saying I don't have strong backend architecture expertise. 2 senior engineers are dug in on opposite sides. The debate is getting heated and we're burning time. I need a facilitated decision without pretending I know what is technically right. How do I lead this? Love it, right? So again, being very vulnerable and saying what I don't know, and then asking for some assistance to help frame it. So questions to draw out the team's expertise. On the Claude side, it says on assumptions. What's each of us assuming about how fast this app will scale? And are those assumptions written down anywhere? Or what would have to be true about our growth trajectory for option A to be clearly the right call, or option B? Love that one, right? So let's start just getting into more metrics instead of feelings. And that way we can make a better, more objective decision. On precedent, has anyone on the team built something similar before and what happened? That's a good one. On constraints that aren't being said out loud, is there anything about our team's current skills or bandwidth that should factor into this choice that we haven't mentioned yet? Not a bad question there. Here on ChatGPT says, I'm not here to declare the technically pure answer. I'm here to ensure we understand the trade-offs and align the architecture to our business goals. Not a bad one. let's see, decision-making process, structured input from both sides, engineering lead makes recommendation, you confirm alignment with business constraints. If no clear owner exists, escalate ownership before debating substances. That's, let's find out who's going to make the call before we go into that full debate portion. So again, you get the point. That's what we're trying to get after, is utilizing Chat GPT or Claude or Copilot or any of the other ones I haven't mentioned. Again, no strong preference to either of them or any of them, but I wanted you to see how you could begin to prompt and find ways to be able to ask better questions so that we can lead and get better results. So to recap and our call to action for this episode, your domain expertise is overrated for PMs, I feel, right? It's true, because facilitation expertise can become underrated. So great PMs ask the right questions and create the conditions for experts to thrive. They bring the best out of the people. And so going back to my example in the beginning, when they're like, oh, shouldn't you be an expert? And I go, well, how many, insurance people you have? You have 5,000? Well, I'm designed to get the best out of those 5,000 people. That's what I do. And so that's why I probably should get domain expertise, and I promise you I will learn. But do I need it in order to be an effective PM for you? No, I don't. No, I don't. AI also can then assist you in bridging those knowledge gaps super, super fast. So your non-negotiable experiment, use the domain knowledge accelerator on an unfamiliar area of your current project. And then ask at least one question this week from the question for experts from that list that AI generates. And now, here's what I'd like you to notice when we do that. Did asking questions instead of pretending to know earn you more credibility? It generally will give you greater influence and build a stronger bond with your team when you do that. And then how much faster can you learn with AI as a tutor? All right, that's this episode. Next time on episode 5, we're going to start talking about data rules. It's my metrics 2.0. And we're going to start talking about what metrics actually matter for AI era PMs, and how can we develop new metrics in order and use AI to accelerate that in order to accelerate how we deliver our projects. That's it for this episode. We hope to see you next time. I'm Rick Morris, and this has been AI Driven PM. Keep protecting your people, telling the truth, and making dreams come true.